Three, two, uno. Hello. What's up, Michelle?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Good. Yeah, thanks for asking.
Thanks for coming on and doing the podcast. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm excited to be here. I was really excited to get the invitation.
Awesome. Yeah, we have a good reach outreach program right here at MB Media. I said, I read your book, and before we started, I was telling you the little stories about how. Well, by the way, if you haven't recognized Michelle Janikian's name on the podcast, she wrote a book regarding the psilocybin mushrooms. And one of my favorite books that I like to read and that I like to give away, your psilocybin mushroom companion.
Yeah, thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate it.
And like I was saying before, before we started recording, that once I hear my friends talk about that they want to start experiencing mushrooms, I usually give them the book.
That's awesome. No, that means a lot. That's kind of how I thought it would move around, mycelial network and all that.
Oh, there you go. Oh, that's cool. That's a good way to put it. Mycelial network.
Just like friends of friends or family, I always thought it would be the more experienced person kind of initiating their friend or family member. So it's great to hear that.
Yeah. Once I hear them say, "Hey, like, have you heard of microdosing?" and I tell them, "Well, do you got about 10 hours that we can set aside so we can talk about it?" But don't hear it from me. Check out this book, dude. So I give them the book, and most of them don't give it back, which is fine. I just usually get another copy. It's okay.
I like that system, actually. That works out for me pretty well.
You see a high increase in book sales. You know why.
There you go. In Southern California, you know why.
Thank you, actually, so much.
So what gave you the first, I know you probably talk about it a little bit in the book. What was the first moment that you thought, you know what, I'm going to write a book about psilocybin?
Yeah, the first moment's a good question. I don't know if I have like an exact story about the moment, but the idea was to write a book about mushrooms that was like unbiased. It wasn't like trying to it wasn't too dogmatic about anything, like any school of thought. I felt like a lot of the books on psychedelics were either like super scientific or really spiritual, and there's nothing wrong with either, but I guess I always thought the average person was coming from somewhere in the middle. And that to like explain everything that's going on in this like psychedelic world, it's like seems like now it's everywhere and just kind of everyday language, like how I would talk to my mom or my friends who like also have never tried any psychedelic before, and just like give them the non-biased like lowdown on everything you need to know to do this in a safe, responsible way. The original pitch was how to trip like an adult. And
okay.
just that title didn't make it in the end, but just try to like explain, this isn't some crazy hippie thing or it's not just for kids or whatever. There's some really serious stuff going on here, but and this is what you need to know maybe before going into it to have a safe, good time or, a beneficial time with mushrooms.
Right. And you brought up a really good point about most psychedelic books being very, I guess, the lingo, the scientific lingo, especially in the Psychedelic Explorer's Guide.
Yeah.
By who was it? That Fadiman?
James Fadiman, yeah.
Right, and which was very heavy in just scientific lingo, and I can barely read a few pages where I had to like stop Googling. And like your book came across as very uh, it was easy to grasp, and just like you said, that just relaying the message about psychedelics.
Yeah, and it's something, I am a writer and I've done a bunch of journalistic and like educational journalism, like explainer journalism work. And I'd been writing about cannabis for a pretty long time. And, the transition into psychedelics was a pretty natural one, obviously. And to just keep that kind of educational spirit alive, like this is, without the stigma, without the drug war, but also like there's all this kind of new or like kind of spiritual or scientific, not stigma, but just like, point of view, kind of an angle, kind of feels like a narrative sometimes. And I just wanted to do something just straight up. And so what I tried to do with my journalistic work about cannabis and other psychedelics, drugs, plant medicine. I don't really care what word you use. I don't know the word plant medicine.
All
actually.
of them.
Yeah, all of them. It's all good, actually. And so, yeah, it was a natural transition, kind of like, it was my first book too. So like how I like moved into like more longer form, just like explainer work and yeah, luckily it's been resonating with a lot of people. So I feel really just grateful and glad it's out there and people are finding it useful.
And before this book, you wrote for Playboy, you wrote for High Times, Herb Magazine, Double Blind, actually Psychedelics Today. I haven't really caught up on their podcast, but I heard the interview with you on there, Big Buds, Team Vogue. I mean, all the list goes on and on for Michelle.
Thank you.
So, I mean, awesome, great pieces like the one in Rolling Stone. I can't remember the exact piece, but
yeah, that
awesome
was
stuff.
on cannabis legalization in Mexico, actually,
Oh,
back in
was.
2007. So already like so much has happened, but kind of when the conversation started, I was reporting on that. I was here, I was in
Wow.
Mexico and trying to follow that story, which is still not totally legal, but they're working on it. It's
Really?
slow,
Even
slow.
since 2007?
That was 2017,
Oh,
actually. I wrote that
2017.
article.
Okay.
But still like 5 years ago, and there's just been a long process here to go through like the legalization process. It's on the way, but yeah.
How different is it? Like kind of the stigma behind it in Mexico versus the stigma here?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like, it's funny. When I first started reporting on it, I was newer to Mexico and I was like so excited. And I was like, man, in a few years, we're going to have dispensaries. It's going to be California. And no, I didn't understand actually culturally. The stigma is still pretty strong.
Wow.
It's changing. I've been witnessing it changing. Definitely. It's definitely more, people are definitely more open, like tias, your moms are more open, like, medical, like they're hearing about the medical stuff, but still there's a pretty big stigma, like, oh, you're going to be like a lazy stoner or whatever. But it's changing. There's a lot of like really cool folks here working on that. And yeah, I've made like a lot more like weed tea bags for my friends' moms and
Oh,
stuff
wow.
than I did when I first got here, but it's happening, but it's just like maybe we're California. I'm not from California, but what I imagine maybe California was like 20, 30 years ago. So maybe it can be where California is now in some more time, but
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like I mean, my family's from Mexico and I travel frequently there, and I don't think I ever seen my cousins be like, we're gonna go for a walk. Those walks. Where
Yeah.
everybody gets
Yeah,
high.
the infamous walk on Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
with your
yeah,
cousins, I
yeah.
always did that one.
it doesn't happen. I don't. And if my family does smoke weed or do any psychedelics or anything like that, I have no idea. It's just something that's still very taboo.
And private too. And like Catholicism is so much more of like a culture here. I also grew up, my mom is Catholic, and there's just like a lot of shame involved in like having fun.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
feel like that can like continue, that continues culturally and for a lot of different, like, not just Mexico, but like Catholic dominant countries tend to be, I don't know, a little stuck up about things that are fun. I don't but also there's like a lot more history too here, just like with, more like indigenous plant medicine and ceremony. Not exactly being stigmatized, but there's just so much more cultural context here than in America. Well, and also here, like all the hippies in the 60s came down here to kind of just like have a free for all with mushrooms and weed and stuff. And so there's actually kind of a big stigma against that. It's like, oh, those hippies, or like, oh, are you a hippie? You like cannabis or mushrooms. But it is changing. People are definitely opening up, especially to the medical benefits of both, of many kinds of these medicines. So it's interesting time to be anywhere, I think, and watch that. America as well.
So what do you think the big push is in Mexico? Like in changing, I guess, in changing people's minds about cannabis and psychedelics?
What do you mean big push? Like,
okay, so what exactly is the status of cannabis in Mexico?
I'm not currently reporting on it, but it's not legal yet. It is decriminalized. Like you can
Okay.
have up to 5 grams on you, and it's like decriminalized. But that's also, I don't know. People like, I don't know. I wouldn't travel with a lot of cannabis anyway.
Oh yeah.
Just in case. But
Right.
and so what's happened here is that it's different than in America, where like state by state we legalized cannabis, right? And that's how
Okay.
it was, that's how it's changing. Here, the first step was a Supreme Court case that argued that having cannabis illegal is like an infringement on your civil liberties, like a specific civil right that's like the freedom to personality, essentially.
Oh, okay.
And they won. And so after that, there was, and then you have to win the same argument like 3 times for it to pass into like the Senate, and then the Senate has to approve it, and it has to move through like the houses of government. And so
Oh,
there
wow.
were 3 successful court cases, and then it went to the Senate, and it's kind of been stalled for a couple of years. There's definitely been, I see like activists I know going to speak to the Senate, so it's still like an active conversation, but basically they're stuck in the step of like writing all the regulations and figuring out
right,
how
right.
it would really work. And I think that's kind of where it comes down, like culturally, like I think it's the lawmakers who might be like, is Mexico really ready for this? And they have all their like constituents or whatever to consider.
Right.
But there are definitely benefits, right? In addition to the medical benefits, which is kind of what started all the court cases and stuff, like
Right.
little kids with seizure disorders, right? That were getting benefits from CBD oil. I think there's also like there could be a lot of tax money benefits, right? Like
Yeah.
you could make money for states that could really use it. But I don't know if it would work here. The system has a lot of problems.
Right.
So there's a lot to figure out, I think, before it can happen. But I do hope it does. I do think that it's a really good thing, but it's just taking a while.
And by the way, I don't think we stated this, but Michelle's in Mexico at the moment. That's why she can be inside the studio. So, what
Yeah, sorry.
what state are you in exactly?
I
I
live
know you said
in-
it off air, but can you tell
Yeah,
me
I
again?
live in Chiapas. I've been here
Chiapas.
for about 8 years.
Okay, Amber, do you know where that is? I don't know where
I
that
do.
is.
I do. Yeah.
It's in the south. It's the
Oh, okay.
state that borders Guatemala.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're down south.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm pretty far south. But I'm also up in the mountains, so it's like chilly here.
Oh, really?
The low is like 47 tonight. Yeah, it's.
Oh, wow.
As soon as you leave the mountain and go to like a big city an hour away, it's really hot. But yeah.
What made you want to live in Mexico?
Oh, that's a whole long story, but
It's a loaded
know,
question right there.
right? Mexico's helped me so much. I love this country. I was a traveler first when I was really young. I was in my first time I came here, I was 20. And then I did a long trip here when I was 22. And then a friend of mine died when I was 24. And that's when I came down here. And I was a traveler and I went back and forth to New York, where I'm from, a few times, but I basically haven't really come back since then. And I'm now, I'm a resident of Mexico, and I love it here. I consider it my home.
Awesome.
Wow.
That's
And
awesome.
where are you originally from?
I was born in New York City.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in New Jersey.
Oh, wow. Really? That's awesome. That's like totally different from Mexico. And yeah, that's totally
Especially
different.
like I live in like a small city. It's a much
Mhm.
slower pace. It's definitely like healed me from New York life. New
Really?
York life is toxic. And I do feel like I'm finally slowing down. Sometimes other people pass me on the street and it's like a really big accomplishment for me.
You're
So,
used to the fast life out in New York. You were?
I was. I mean, but I haven't lived there now, in a long time.
Mhm.
So, but yeah. When I lived there, I was always in a rush. I lived pretty far away from Manhattan, Queens, so I was always like on the subway. I like lived on the
Oh, wow.
subway. No, I mean, it's just a different pace.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. So, how did you start reporting on cannabis?
Yeah. Um, like what? I don't have like a story for this,
No?
but it kind of happened. I guess
Okay.
it feels like it just so I'm passionate about cannabis. I have my
Okay.
420 titles above my head. I've always been a cannabis consumer, but I actually came more from the content marketing side. I was working for a friend of mine from university, and just like digital marketing, and she kind of pivoted her business to focus on cannabis. It was right when cannabis was being legalized in Colorado. She was in California. It wasn't yet legal, but everyone was like
That
preparing.
was around like maybe 2005, 2006, or
Well,
maybe earlier
this is
than
more
that.
like, I guess I wasn't I was writing about, I was still at college then.
Mhm.
So this for me is more like 2015.
Oh, okay.
Because adult use only came into California around then, right? It actually hasn't been that long.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, and so I was her ghostwriter for a while. I just
Oh,
really
wow.
didn't have the confidence. I didn't really think I could do that whole thing, that whole world. But eventually I quit to try, and it just worked out. And that's around the time, that was around 2017,
Oh,
and that's
okay.
around the time, yeah, I wrote for that article for Rolling Stone, was one of my breakout
Mhm.
pieces, and then I started just getting a lot of work for a while, and
Wow.
it just was like, yeah, kind of overwhelming and crazy, but exciting. But yeah, I'm passionate about cannabis, but yeah, I didn't like pursue it. I don't know, like on my own, that just
It
seemed
it
really hard.
it kind of cannabis writing chose you. You were dragged into it, kicking and screaming, kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. It
Okay.
was a horrible, horrible thing that happened to me. I feel really lucky. It's kind of crazy to think about. Like, I do thank cannabis and mushrooms. It's like how I got my start. I've always wanted to be a writer, but I don't know. It's hard. It's really competitive. And I don't know. It can take a lot of guts to try, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, weed found me and was like, no, I'm gonna put you to use. And then
Yeah.
mushrooms were like, wait, we got a use for you too.
So what prepared you to write your book, to write your mushroom book? What did you
Yeah.
start? Because I know you did your cannabis work. However, did you start writing reporting on psilocybin before you wrote your book?
I did. I had been writing about psilocybin and some other psychedelics for mostly Playboy, a little bit for Herb, I think. For like a year or two. And Yeah, and mushrooms. So then that was around the time that Michael Pollan's book came out, How to Change Your Mind, and there was just all this interest in it.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah, and his book was cool, right? But it really was like, don't do mushrooms unless you're with a professional, except it's okay for me to do it, and this is when I did it, and like
Right.
yada yada. And I
No,
was like, wait a second. There's something not right here. We should
yeah.
change this a little.
let me write about it, and you read about it for about 3 hours, and you can't do this, and for a
I was
professional.
like, and so also, I guess also part of what prepared me was just like mushrooms. I had been eating mushrooms since I was a teenager. And it was really interesting to watch it change from this like kind of crazy drug that I did that not a lot of other people really wanted anything to do with, to like now this like mainstream, there was all this interest. People wanted articles about the therapeutic use and all this stuff. And I was like, wait, that same like crazy world that I like to go to like once or twice a year is now this like therapy cure-all. Like, how does this work? And
Right.
so I kind of just started investigating it, trying to like make the connection from this experience that I knew to like, how is this work for healing? And then I learned so much, and it was actually really surprising, and it was beautiful, and it really felt really special. And of course it does, because mushrooms just everything feels really significant, right?
Yeah.
But like, and then it was like, oh my God, I'm already in Mexico, and mushrooms are from like the state north of me. This is crazy. Like, this must be fate. And yeah, I put everything that I learned into the book. And I interviewed a lot of experts and just also regular mushroom people, people who like to just use them on their own little routines and ways and put it all together. And that's how it came together. I'm not like a guide. I'm not a scientist. I'm not even a therapist. I'm just a writer with an interest and took it really, really far. And here we are.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes that's all you need. You need to have the passion for what you're writing about, or what you're trying to, I guess, what you're trying to convey in your message, right?
And I felt like I was kind of coming from the same place as what I imagined the reader to be, because I was also learning all this new stuff, and I was making this connection, right? Like I said, and I'm also someone who struggles, with my with anxiety, depression, things. I understood the need or the want, and to be able to put it all together for people. I'm really glad I did. I've had a lot of kind of like imposter syndrome about it, more so when it first came out, because everyone
really?
else was like a scientist.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't
wow.
know.
Okay.
There is this whole kind of idea where it's like, I don't know. Oh, well, I'm not an expert, I
Yeah.
guess. Like, I'm a journalist.
What do I know about this? More than
Yeah, and
someone
it's
else,
pretty
yeah.
serious stuff, and everyone else talking is like a PhD, or they're been a underground guide for 30 years, and I was like, oh shit. But luckily, I do think what I put together was needed, and people do seem to appreciate it. So I've kind of shed a little bit of that. Luckily, it took a couple years, but yeah, that's where I came coming from anyway.
I wish I had my first copy of the book, because I had like chapters and chapters of lines just highlighted, and like small little notebook, small like little like bookmarks, and the entire book. And that one, who did I give it to? I gave it to one of my friends. I think it was a coworker, actually. It was weird. It was just like she was we were like talking about it like off to the side, you know those conversations.
Oh
like,
yeah, everyone comes to me for those now, obviously.
and she just brought up like microdosing, and I was like, okay, all right, watch out, girl. Here you go. Take this, read it. But I need to pick up another copy so I can give it away probably in the next couple days. But I always advocate for your book. And you made a good point because it did come out the same year Michael Pollan's book came out, right?
Like a year later.
Like, was it a year later? I was in this, I think it was during the pandemic, and I was spiraling into all these psychedelic books, and that's how I came across your book. I think I Googled psychedelic books. And
Nice.
I just started filling my Amazon cart with all these different books. Michael Pollan's, yours. I think I picked up Acid Dreams too. I think I read that one like twice. It talks about like the counterculture hippie era in the 1960s. But yours was like, those were pretty much like I said before, like kind of like the psychedelic guides, explorer guides. That was it was hard to read. There was no really how to, and I think that was great. That was cool, and that's something that you can give to people.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, and that's how I really thought of it.
Most
Like
of this interview is just going to be me telling you how awesome you are. I just want to tell you that right now.
I should really do more of these.
She's like, every day at 5 o'clock, I'm open.
Yeah, every night at 9:30 before I go to bed.
No, but
that was, the idea to like, every chapter is like, like a subject in the world of psychedelia, where it's like, if I was talking to my mom, it's like, how would I describe this? There's like a set and setting chapter, right? And there's a microdosing and everything, how to handle bad trips, how to like kind of trip in itself. Like, how do you just like deal with yourself when you feel that different? It's overwhelming sometimes. I know it's scary. I still get scared sometimes. I do it anyway, but I get it,
What would you say to like, okay, so like us three, right? I can lump myself in this conversation, but us three know kind of, what to expect. I mean, obviously not every time you expect the same thing, right? But we know, or at least like for me, it's more with intent, right? I'm going to do it with intent. I go in knowing that I want to possibly get something out of this, or, not just a party thing, but for listeners that, maybe think that we're crazy, or it's wild and psychedelics, because I think I was that person that was always scared, and I was like, oh no, like no, like I don't want to trip the way that I see people trip on movies, or the way that they depict it, right? So
I don't want to lose control, right? Control. I know, I hear that all the time,
and that's one of the things that I was so surprised about, was you really don't lose control. You have control the entire time. But for someone that, like I don't want to say a naysayer, but someone that's thinking about it, but not like
a refuter of psychedelics.
How would you in a nutshell explain doing psychedelics to someone, where it's like, how would you ease them in, right? Make them feel a little better about it.
Yeah, it's a good question. It does depend on where they're coming from. If they're kind of like, I can tell they're interested, yet a naysayer, those types where they're like, oh, but they still want to know more. Like, I'm gentle with them. I try to like explain, that it's, it's not like in the movies. It's not some big, like, it can be not big and crazy, but a little overwhelming. You don't lose control. You're always yourself though, right? But it is like seeing yourself. I think I describe it in the book like from a bird's eye point of view. And so I usually go in with the intention of just like learning about something about myself, right? Like sometimes I have more specific intentions, and it depends on like where I am or what's going on in my life. But it is just like this 6 hours that I can just like really reflect, and I learn a lot. I learn a lot about myself. It's like therapy in a way. And sometimes it's hard, and that's what I have to be honest too. Like, sometimes it's sad, or sometimes I don't totally like what I see, but that's all part of it. It's like part of this learning experience, where if I do find something that makes me that I don't like then I can see it like with kind of like it's not bad. It's not like a mal viaje, right? It's not like super terrible. It's like a learning experience. I can maybe figure out why I don't like that part about myself or what I can do to change it. Or if maybe now that I've seen it, I can realize it in my everyday working life and make little adjustments. Or it can be so many different things. It can also be like a release, right? Like if you take when you're like in a tripping dose, like 2, 3, 4, 5 grams, I can do a lot of like crying, but like it's not sad. It's kind of like letting things go that I needed to, that I didn't even know I was like holding back. Or it can be like grieving things I didn't know were really bothering me. And I can kind of just let them go in that moment. Like, this is my time to grieve that thing. Or I just had this big realization. And now I can, like, it's like a release in a way. Now I can move on and I don't have to carry it so heavily anymore. But not everyone's ready for that, right? I start talking like this at a party and someone's like, wait, what?
Never mind.
But I think if you're ready for it, some people are looking for that.
Yeah.
But maybe not. Maybe you want to try microdosing. Maybe that's easier way in, or just see things a little differently. Like, my friends here are pretty scared, and I haven't done a full dose with my best friend here. He's not ready, and that's okay. But we have microdosed a couple times at camping, and my friends are enjoying it. It's like they're more present. They're like, you know what I think it was? I was like more open. I was just more in the moment, and I'm like, yeah, that's what it's like.
Okay.
It just gets like bigger and bigger, kind of. I think sometimes when you're on a higher dose, right, you're just so in the moment. You can't imagine not being in the moment.
Absolutely.
But that's a beautiful thing, because I usually live in my head like in the future. I'm always like, that's anxiety, right? I'm always like planning, or like, oh, everything feels overwhelming and I need to like get everything done or whatever. And I know that now because I saw it on mushrooms, and I saw that I'm in control of that, right? And I need to slow that down, or else I'm always going to be stressed out, and I don't need to be, really. Or it's so many things. It's hard to describe. But that it can help you be just like the best version of yourself, if that's like how you want to use it. It can also be just like a really beautiful, eye-opening night with like your partner or your best friend, or maybe a guide, or like whatever. It depends on what you're looking for. And I think that's why I wrote the book, because I think people are coming and looking for so many different things. And the narrative that's like in the mainstream media is kind of like, well, if you're not like a diagnosed depressed, like clinically depressed person or whatever, like it's still bad and you shouldn't do it and yada yada. And I don't think that's true. I think that it can help anyone if they're open to it. And that it's like a really, I don't know, it's a really big experience that I think can just help you be more self-aware and kind. And everyone should, if that's what they want, they should try it.
Right. And I think that's where it is. I think that's where the person has to be open to it, and hopefully they would release all these stigma around how they feel about it. Because I can't imagine, taking mushrooms and then also still thinking that there may be something bad that happened to them. You know what I mean? Like I don't see that. But I mean, I remember the first time that I tried them. It was kind of a random moment. Friend of mine was just like, "Hey, you want to try some?" I'm like, "Sure." All right. I'll try them. Like it was just out of nowhere, because I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna go searching for these. I'm not gonna go ask around. But they just popped in my hand, and I was like, okay, cool. So I mean, I took them, and it was freaking amazing. Like I kind of just like, as I was eating them, I was like, you know what? Okay, everything's gonna be fine. I just breathe. I did absolutely zero research about them, so I didn't I didn't have the information that I had now, but I don't know, like it still ended up being a very good experience.
That's same. I mean, you've read my book, so you know, but my first experience was very similar, and it was still so powerful and beautiful. It was so eye-opening. It was like, oh my God, yes, I knew this place existed somewhere. I'm so glad I found it, you know?
Absolutely, yes.
It could be like a homecoming. It's
Yeah.
really beautiful. It makes me just feel really correct, like not like correct in the world, like correct with myself, you know, like finally, like, oh, everything makes sense. And yeah, it's really,
That's my favorite. It all
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah,
It all makes
that
sense every time.
me
I'm like,
too.
It
Me
all
too.
makes sense.
that realization, like that, it was like, oh, whoa, hold on, and then 5 minutes later, oh my God, that makes sense too. Hold on. But yeah, it was
know.
those little realization moments, like along the way, are it's amazing. I don't know, like how do we get somebody to be open to that when they have negative thoughts about it already?
It's hard. I guess I still haven't figured that out yet, you
Yeah.
know? It's hard to explain to people before they've done it, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's like kind of impossible. I don't know. It's a good question.
I was that person because I mean we've been together for almost 4 years, and he used to tell me about his trips and this and that, and I was like,
I think
oh,
one of our first. Can I say this on air? Like
What?
one of our first dates, I picked her up and I stopped by
Oh, yeah.
to pick up a bag of mushrooms, and I was like, hey, you want to see what these
I was
they
like,
you want to see what they look
"Sure."
like?
But it took me almost 4 years. Well, yeah, about 4 years to kind of finally, give in. And again, I think it just has to be. You have to be ready for it.
You have to want it,
Yeah,
right?
you have
I
to
think.
want it. Because after that trip, it was like a really long trip. I think it was like 8 hours that we like tripped, and it was beautiful. We cried, we danced, we wrote, we
Hmm.
like everything, and all. I know, I trust me. And after, I was like, I wanted to tell everybody. And I was like, I feel like a crazy person that's just like, hey, believe me. But that's how I felt. Like I wanted to tell everybody how amazing it was and how like not scary it was. And the next day you feel amazing and energized and happy and things click. And for me to try to tell people, because I did call a couple like of my friends, I even called like two of my aunts, and I was like, please don't tell my mom, but let me tell you because I have to tell you. And they were just like, okay, we support you. We won't do it, but we support you. And I'm like, all right, like I'm serious about this. But I feel like for me, that's the feeling that I got right after.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a beautiful feeling too. I was pretty young when I first tried it, but I was the same way. I was like a senior in high school, like 17, I think. And yeah, then I got all my friends to try it. I was like, you guys, there's this amazing place we could go to where magic is real and everything makes sense. And they were like, no. And I was like, yeah. But yeah, I was a bit young. It was fun coming back or like, understanding it more like intellectually, doing all that research and everything it felt like I was figuring it out when I was writing the book and starting to report on it before that. And it's been such yeah, sometimes I can forget that initial feeling and that's a good reminder. I appreciate you telling me that story because it is like that. And sometimes I forget that's who I'm talking to when I do these things or other things, and it's so true. It's a beautiful place. And I'm glad people are opening up to it, and like it's being decriminalized across the US and just more people are talking about it in this way. And it's really exciting. I do think it's a good thing. It's not like I don't know, not that even other drugs are like bad or whatever, but it is a little different. It is just
Yeah.
this like And the next day too, you feel so good. It's even not like alcohol or even like LSD. I get like so tired the next day, and like, or alcohol. I'm such a mess. I can't have more than like 2 drinks and I'm a mess now.
Same.
And yeah, I know. It's an exciting time. I'm really glad that the world's opening up to it. It makes you wonder like why now, but we do have so many things to deal with, so it feels pretty cosmic.
Yeah, it's been since like I want to say what, like 1968, something like that. That they stopped clinical trials of psilocybin.
Oh, I think you're right. That's the year, or right around then it was. Yeah, I have the exact year in the book. I think the Controlled Substances Act
It was like 1972.
officially 72.
Yeah.
But before that, it started to become illegal and they stopped studies. Yeah, it was
Right.
right around that. It's in Jim Fadiman's book too. The
Yeah,
Explorer's
exactly.
Guide.
Which was and the cool thing about when I started reading all these books was that like they were all like, of course they were transparent with the information, but like all these timelines really like matched up. And like even I think you had some cited words from Fadiman's book, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's like it's a whole puzzle piece. Like it's history, it's psychology, it's mycology, right? And just science, and all these different things all talking about like the same thing. And I don't know, I was like, I'm super excited. I if not more now than I was when I first started reading about these substances, and learning about them, and chasing information, I want to say, about these things. And just like Amber said, like I still I probably won't ever stop talking about mushrooms or psilocybin or any type of plant medicine, because I don't know, like people need to know, like they every person needs to experience this. I feel
Everyone who wants to, and if
Everybody
they
who
think
wants
they
to,
don't
yes.
want to, yeah, we just need to change their mind.
we said one time we were tripping, and we were, I mean, we're a couple, so we we were hashing out, just couple things, and love and everything, and then at the end I was like, you know what, they should put people that like really hate each other or have a lot of issues in one room and give them mushrooms. I'm like, I'm sure everything will clear up, and that's how I feel like it is. It's like therapy. Like it helps you work through things, even with yourself or with someone that you're there doing it with.
It is. It's I know. It can be fun too, right? And I kind of love those moments when you're with a loved one and you're hashing things. I know exactly what you meant. Like, yes. Those are my favorite moments. It's usually like after the come up, right? And you get through all the kind of like nasty. I do hate the come up, and I do like to warn people, like just bear with me this first like hour. It's gonna be fine. Because it can be kind of just like, a bit nauseous, a bit like anxious. But then once you like kind of arrive at that place, it's so beautiful. One of my oldest friends and I, who I actually, from the beginning, in the beginning of my book, when I talk about my first mushroom trip and I say goodbye to my friend in his driveway and I go home, and then I end up having my big experience. We're still really close. We've been friends since the 4th grade, and he comes down to visit me like once a year, and we do usually indulge in a few grams somewhere beautiful, like we'll go to the beach or something, and we'll just like talk and be silly, or make up stories, like look at the stars and like make up our own mythologies, or just like, it's just so beautiful. We can talk about anything. And with my partner too, my husband, like we love going into that space together. We don't do it that often, but a few times a year, we love going camping, building a fire, inviting some friends maybe, and just like taking a few grams and just like connecting and just being open and silly or hashing things out. And it's a really special place that I'm so glad we can go to together.
Do you think that I mean, of course, your environment has some significance to your psychedelic trip. Do you think more or less that having an experience inside versus outside is better, or vice versa? Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I personally think that like folks should be comfortable, wherever you feel really safe and comfortable, especially for like your earlier experiences. That's the most important. My partner will disagree. He will tell you he has to be outside. He hates being inside when we trip. He's just like, he feels claustrophobic, like the walls are coming in. He's just like, no, we have to. And I do also like being outside. It can just be like, you do get that like connection to nature feeling. Like I love looking at the stars or fire, or if it's in the day, and you're in a beautiful place and you can just kind of marvel at the grass or the way the light hits the leaves, and it just can really connect with nature, and it just feels all very natural and right. But I think folks need to decide for themselves. I don't know. Like I like having a beautiful outdoor place with a comfortable inside, like available.
Okay. Right.
Like if you have so there's this hotel that my partner and I really like on the Oaxacan coast that just has these really beautiful views of the sea and these like big, pretty gardens. So you feel like kind of private from the other rooms. You can't like see them because there's all this lush, like tropical plants. And then inside it's comfortable. There's a nice bed. We have a private bathroom. There's even an air conditioner. So like we spend most of the time outside talking and looking at the trees, and it's beautiful. But like if you want to go lay in the bed, you can, right? You don't have to pee in the woods. Like, things like that are kind of nice. But I'm an outdoor person in general, so I vote for outside.
Oh, okay. You got 2 votes for outside. Okay. Yeah, I mean, most of my experiences have been inside at night. And I'm still planning for that big experience outside.
Yeah, and it can be tricky, right? If you don't live somewhere, I mean, I think that's hard. Like I'm from a city, right? I get that. Like you're not going to go to a public park. You need to find like a private place, and you can't you don't want to drive your car. There's like a lot of variables. So I get it's harder, but when you find that special spot, it's nice. We have like this little camping spot we love. It's always super private. But I'm a really private person. I really don't want to see anyone when I'm in that space. It just like bugs me out. I don't want to like have to wave to some. I don't know. I can do. Right. But I don't want to if I can help it.
I don't want to see people.
See,
I really don't.
I thought I was the only one because a last trip that I had, people arrived where we were at, and I was like, I don't like this. And
the vibe gets weird.
And they're so nice. They're people that I have been in my life.
You've known for years, right?
Years. Yeah. I can conversate everything. And it just happened. And I was like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to say hi. I don't want to have to entertain anyone. Like, I don't know. It was just like, and Gil's like, but you talk to me. And I'm like, yeah, but it just feels so different. Like, and I felt really bad that I felt that, but I just couldn't entertain someone, and especially
Definitely.
if they were
you're just not I agree, me too. That actually happened to me a couple years ago. My friends and I were at a beach house, and like half of us took a little bit and the other half didn't. And even though they're all like 2 of my best friends. There's my best friend from New York and my best friend from Mexico, and they love each other, and it's like a good time. We're spending all day at the beach. But yeah, when some people weren't tripping, and then I felt bad, and I couldn't like translate and go back and forth as easily. Like I was the middleman, right? I was like and I just couldn't. I was like, you guys, I'm sorry. Like not right now. They got it. They didn't care, but it was like there was just too many variables to keep track of. I just wanted to go with the like mushroom flow. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, man, I can't imagine trying to host something like that and then going back and forth. And translating too.
I'm like, I think my brain only works in one language when I'm tripping.
Is it usually Spanish? Or is it
yeah,
English?
It
It varies?
it varies.
Oh my
It depends
That's
gosh.
on my
cool.
mood.
That's cool.
Michelle, so what would you say for some of our listeners that, don't know a lot about psychedelics and mushrooms? Like what would you say are some benefits for us or for them kind of doing psychedelics or mushrooms?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely talked about a bunch of them. I think being just more open and honest and self-aware with yourself is a big one. I think that's how it helps me the most. It's kind of like it knocks down all your like bullshit filters and you can kind of just get in touch with just like what you really care about or who you really are or what, like when everything else is stripped away, like what's left. And I think that's a really beautiful thing to learn about yourself. It can also help you connect with loved ones, right? It can help you, and also like therapeutically, there are all these benefits. There's so much more to it, right? With all the scientific studies and everything. I'm not even super up to date right now but there's so many coming out, and it's really beautiful. Um, I think that like if you're looking for something that mushrooms might do it, like do some homework. But
Right.
like I do feel like they're not a cure-all, definitely not. But I do think that like modern life is just like really stressful and we live in a very weird time and we're dealing with so much all the time. And it's really kind of nice to know that there's this pretty easy to get or to grow substance that grows all over the world, and you just eat a few dried grams of them or even less, even like microdosing, or everyone's different with their dosage and I respect that. But that you just eat a little bit of this natural fungi and you can kind of like breathe. You can go to this really just like pure space that's not super like inundated with like all the stresses of modern life and all the other stuff you worry about. You can be in the moment just with yourself and who you're with, the place you're in. And it's really great to know that that's there. It's not really an escape, right? Because you're still you. You don't lose control. You don't go somewhere else. If you take really high doses, I've heard it can be a little, close your eyes and it can be a little bit like another place. But I've never even gone like that deep. But I think there's so many benefits, but I do think it can just help you get in touch with who you are and what you want to be, and you kind of bring that spirit with you back into the world.
And and along with the benefits, how also important is the integration period after your experience?
Well, if you are doing mushrooms for some kind of like therapeutic reason, or if your intention is like deeper, like more specific, then integration is important. And I think integration, just like tripping or just like what you're looking for, is different for everyone. I have a lot of advice in the book on ways to integrate. But basically we mean, right, like figuring out what your lessons or your realizations were and how you can apply them to your life or to your intention. And there's a lot to be said about that. It's really powerful. I think it's not just like take the mushroom and change. It's
Right.
take the mushroom, see how you have to change. And then the integration part is making those changes or doing whatever it is that, maybe you think is making you unhappy or a little sick or like whatever. It can be so many things, right? It can be, I
Yeah.
need to exercise more. I need to call my mom more. It could be so many
Yeah,
different
absolutely.
things. But it's listening and following through. That's hard. That's the hardest part. It
Mhm.
seems really easy and like powerful when you're on mushrooms. You're like, oh, the answer is just calling my mom more.
That's
How
it.
did I not
That's
think
it.
of
That's
it?
right. Right.
But then when it comes down to it and you're like, oh, I should really call her today. Like, you got to do it.
So I mean, with that, wow, my next question was about integration also, but man, I missed it. Integration is maybe to define it right, Michelle, is integrating what you learned in your, or what you experienced during your psychedelic trip, and applying that to your everyday life. Did I get that correct?
I think, yeah, that's what it means to me anyway.
Okay.
And sometimes, and I explain in the book, like sometimes you still don't know, right? You come out of the trip and you're like, wait, I didn't get an answer. I was looking for an answer and I still don't have it. And I think you can still kind of like use that experience to figure it out. And there's, people like to do all sorts of different things. And I have ideas in the book, like how you can still kind of like digest and figure out your trip, and, walking in nature or yoga, or like, there's all different ways that are kind of just like meditation, like ways to clear your mind or get back in touch with yourself and with your intentions, or with nature,
right?
Inspire awe, the kinds of things that mushrooms make you feel. Like, how can you get to that place just in, on a weeknight,
right?
And you can still kind of find answers there if you just keep thinking about it, right? Keep digesting it. Don't just like throw it under the bed as like a weird night. Like keep thinking about it, journal about it. That's my big thing. I'm a journaler. Okay. I'm a writer, right? But
of course.
After a trip, or I like to try to journal a little before, kind of see how I'm feeling, what my intentions are. Do a little bit after, maybe the day after if I'm really tired, and then come back to it maybe before my next trip. Read what I was feeling last time. You can kind of see how much you've grown, or what's happened since then, or what you were looking for before and what you found after and how different they were, or whatever. It can be really interesting.
So from there, what did you pull up here?
Oh no,
Number?
no, I'm just don't mind me.
Oh, okay. Sorry. she pulled up something up there. Yeah, because I seen this this photo. It was like this photo, like this meme looking thing, and it said that like when you take mushrooms, they don't change you, they show you the way to change, right? And I believe there's also like there's a comedian that did a bit about it. It's like, if you take mushrooms and you're an asshole, you're still gonna be an asshole. You're just high.
Yeah.
Right?
I forget who.
Do you remember who it is?
I don't, but I remember thinking, like,
I
this
heard
guy
it.
gets
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly. That's when I heard that audio bit, I was just like, yeah, he's tripped before and he understands it, man. He understands it. But it's completely true.
But...
Can we look that up? Can you look that up, Amber? I want to hear that clip. But it's exactly true, because I mean that's what I first thought. I was like, like even before trying psilocybin, like I was like, okay, like, am I gonna have this experience and then completely change as a person? I think you learn by experience, right? Like if you're the asshole and you take mushrooms, and you can still be an asshole after that, or anybody else can.
I know.
If you're an asshole, like, I'm sorry, I not everybody's an asshole, but you know what I mean.
Well, you know what could happen is maybe the mushrooms will help you realize that you're an asshole.
Exactly, and you can start working it out.
Yeah, totally. But I've had people tell me that's part of what they're afraid of. They're like, well, I don't want to change. Like, I don't want to be a totally different person. And I look at them, I'm like, that's not how it works, but okay. Like, I get where you're coming from. Right. Or they hear a story of someone who did, right? They're like, well, my friend's kid, after he took mushrooms, he, like, I don't know, moved in a van and drove across the country and never came back. I guess that's probably the story my mom tells me. She's she moved to Mexico and she never came back. But I don't know.
I think I heard that one too.
But yeah, it's not that simple, right? I mean, you can come back feeling a lot lighter or something, but a totally different person. I mean, I wish there was a drug for that. I still don't think they made one.
Another question too, and then we can wrap it up. But So I'm not trying to make a fat joke about myself right now, but I'm thinking as like maybe I'm getting older that or maybe it's there's all these different variables that I'm thinking about, right? It could be a weight gain. It could be maybe the mushrooms that I've taken have are less concentrated with psilocybin. But is there weight mass or is this body mass compared to psilocybin? Is there any correlation with that? Do you know?
I think there is. I mean, I know when they do the clinical studies with isolated psilocybin and not mushrooms, they
Okay.
do calculate your dose like by your weight.
Oh, okay.
However, I don't know. I think it really depends on a lot of things. Like, so I'm smaller, but I
Right.
need a lot of mushrooms to feel it. Like, it's like my brain is thicker. So my skull
Okay.
is thick and I need a lot
So
of
my
like
brain's
mushrooms.
fat. It's not me.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
think
my brain. Okay,
yeah,
I got
it's
it.
a compliment. I don't know, or like people have thicker personalities or something. I
Maybe.
need like a lot to crack through me.
Okay.
And I have some friends who are a lot bigger than me and who are really sensitive. We also might have a tolerance, even though we're not like eating them every day.
Right.
We know what to expect, and maybe we need a little more to get to that place. But mushrooms also really vary in strength. And if they're not that fresh, I think they lose their strength
Oh,
kind of
okay.
fast sometimes. It can
makes
like
sense.
deteriorate. Yeah, that's happened to me where I've eaten some mushrooms that I've had around for a couple months and I don't really have much of an experience. So it definitely, there's a lot to
There's
it,
variables,
but
right?
magic. It's the magic
Okay.
part.
I have
Yeah.
one more question.
Let's go
before
with
you
that.
wrap
Sure,
it up.
I'm here. What's your
One
question?
more question.
It's all good.
Just because I guess for me, like, I know that there's indigenous tribes like in Mexico that do use, psychedelics and things like that. But are there still like is there still a lot now, like to date, that still use it like ceremonial wise or on a daily basis or how what's going on in that realm?
Definitely. So in Oaxaca, mostly is where, well, actually that's not even true. Like there's other groups in other places too, I think. Um, but I've gone to one city in Oaxaca in the mountains, Huautla de Jimenez, where Maria Sabina is from, and mushrooms are still a very big part of their culture and tradition. It's amazing. It's really beautiful. It is ceremonial. It is mostly for like serious problems, it is like medicine. It's really serious medicine. I have a bit in my book where my source, a friend of mine who's from that up there, the Mazatec community, he told me they did a mushroom ceremony when his mom was diagnosed with cancer. And she also went and had a surgery like in Puebla, I'm pretty sure. But she did both. She had a ceremony with her family because that's also the traditional way. You don't go alone. Like you usually go with your whole family and you all eat the mushrooms together and like feel the spirit of the mushrooms. And it's all very deeply connected to their spirituality with the mountains. And there's like guardians of the mountains and the water and everything. It's really beautiful. And yeah, he told me that after they did that mushroom ceremony and his mom had surgery, her cancer was gone and it's still gone. She hasn't come back.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow,
it's
that's
power
amazing.
of intention, I think. And it's a lot to it. But there are other groups too. And it's like becoming more popular again. So it's like also there are, people that maybe haven't, like communities that maybe haven't done it so much, but there's more interest now and they're doing it more, things like that. It works like that sometimes, right? Like ebb and flow. But definitely, it's really beautiful and interesting and fascinating to learn about.
Michelle, do you have anything that you're working on currently now? Hope in the future to like any other part, maybe my psilocybin companion part 2, maybe.
I'm not working on that yet, but I do keep thinking about I would like to do like maybe a second edition sometime in the future, update the research, some more that I've learned, but it's not in the works. I haven't, I'm not officially working on that. I have been trying to write a novel.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Yeah, that's like where my head has been at recently. It is very psychedelic inspired.
That's awesome.
But it is science fiction and maybe involves contacting aliens with DMT.
Nice.
Maybe.
Maybe. Still figuring it all out, but
That is
that's also-
awesome.
it's just a work in progress, but it's really been getting my like juices flowing again. So it's exciting, and yeah, thank you.
How much DMT experience do you have? One last question, I'll let you go. I promise.
We were like one last.
Oh, it's all good. No, I'm having fun. Just a little. I've broken through on DMT 4 times, I think.
Oh wow. Okay.
And every time it's been totally batshit crazy and different, and
Wow.
it's really fascinating, and it just, I don't know, it's just this endlessly interesting world that I am terrified of. That is just getting my creative juices flowing. It really feels like you go kind of somewhere else, and
Wow.
there are things there that have nothing to do with you, that have their own motives, and it's just this wild, weird little world. It's not really like a very therapeutic thing for me, although I've read there's some studies coming out that it is helping people with like depression and stuff.
Wow. Okay.
But for me, it's just this very interesting, weird, very weird place that is just inspiring me creatively to pursue more science fiction. So
What would you tell somebody right now that is preparing themselves for their first DMT trip?
Just close your eyes.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Just, it's like not, I don't know. It's a little scary. I think that it's scary, but try not to let your fear get the best of you, I suppose, because I've just kind of been dealing with my fear. I think every time I've broken through, it's just kind of like DMT being like, you're still fucking terrified. And I'm like, I know. And they're like, just let that go and we can show you more stuff. And I'm like, I can't let go. I don't know what to do. So I don't know. I don't have any answers yet. I'm not a pro, but it's exciting. It's weird. It's if you want something totally different, it's DMT.
Have you had with the times that you have like broken through? Is someone there with you, or is just you completely? by yourself?
I have met like a couple entities. They're kind of more like presence than I like see like an alien or something.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of like, it's hard to tell if it's like me thinking or it's like another voice in my head because it is like my voice, but it feels kind of other. It's hard to explain. But I've never really had that on mushrooms. You know, I don't really like see a lot of things. Things like
Yeah.
breathe and move around, but I'm not the kind that like has a spirit animal with me all the time
No,
or
me
something.
neither.
So
Wow.
yeah, and there are people and that's cool. But yeah, I don't know, I'm still pretty grounded even when I eat mushrooms, but DMT is something else.
And the times that you did try the DMT, were you with a group? Was it just you and somebody else, or I mean, how did that
Yeah,
happen?
I'm looking into doing a 5-MAO ceremony here, but no, I've just been doing it here
Oh, okay.
in my home. Yeah, I tell my partner what I'm doing, but actually I like to be alone because you are just kind of like, you just kind of close your eyes. It's like 5 minutes. It's all very quick.
Mhm.
I tell my husband what I'm doing, and he's like, okay, babe, I'll see you in like 20 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, I love you. What's for dinner?
Have dinner ready when I'm done.
Kind of.
That's awesome. Michelle, thanks for coming out and thank you for hanging out with me for about an hour, me and Amber. So go ahead and share what you got going on.
Yeah, no, thank you again so much for inviting me, you and Amber. I really appreciate it. My book is Your Psilocybin Mushroom Companion. It's available everywhere, Amazon, bookshop.org. I sell it also on my website if you're in the US, michellejanikian.com. And that's also where you can find my past articles, other podcasts I've done. In my Instagram, all my social media is linked up on there. So lots of good stuff on there. Contact form as well if you're looking to get in touch. And yeah, that's about it for now. Working on this other book, but it's gonna take a while. So
I'm excited for that.
Oh, thank you.
I'm really excited.
It's a work in progress. I'm like learning how to write a novel at the same time.
Oh
but-
yeah. Okay, yeah, because you're used to being a journalist, right? It's totally different type of style.
It's a fun transition. I'm liking it, and hopefully that'll be up on the website and all those kinds of things too. And yeah, I'm most active on my Instagram, so I'll be posting updates and other, opportunities to see me speak or whatever up on there. So
When are you back in the States?
I don't know yet, but I might be doing an event in Southern California this spring or summer. I'll definitely let you know, but it's not confirmed, so I won't drop that one quite yet, but possibly. I might be coming to the San Diego area in June, but we'll see. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks again, Michelle, for coming out and doing the podcast. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I thank you so much.
The Mind Buzz Podcast.